Welcome back, baseball fans. This is your preview of the 84, 69, 70, 71 World Series. The top seeds of each league have made it to the World Series for the first time in a long time since I've been doing this. We've had some wild card teams make it, some ones and twos have made it. But we get number ones and number one in each league, and the two teams with the best overall record in baseball. So this is probably the best World Series heavyweight fight I've had in at least the last 5 years that I can remember. I can't think of a better matchup. It's also, in a great coincidence, the 50th anniversary of the 1970 World Series between these same teams, the Reds and Orioles. Let me just kind of take a quick look at the rotation here. The way the schedule sets up is that the guy who pitches in game 1 pitches in game 4 and 7. So it'll be Cuellar for the Orioles and Gullett for the Reds in 1. Game 2, a couple of right-handers, Jim Palmer and Mario Soto. Game 3, Dave McNally and Jim Maloney. Game 4, we go back to the game 1 starters on short rest. Mike Cuellar, Don Gullett. Game 5, we finally see the number 4 starters make their debut, which is Mike Boddicker versus John Butcher. Then we're back in Game 6 with the same matchup from Game 2, Palmer and Soto. And then after a day off, we finish up again with a third installment of Mike Cuellar, Don Gullett, which will obviously weigh heavily into who wins the World Series. So we're going to do a preview here of the two teams. We're going to take you through the batting lineup and right through the reserves, the pitching, and the bullpen. So we're going to start with the Cincinnati Reds. So here is your opening day lineup for the World Series. Leading off will be Bobby Tolan in center field. He's a 2, minus 2E9, great defense, great arm. One of the, which you call your 5-tool guy, double-A stealer, left-handed batter, which lefties better than righties, would normally probably be the superstar on this team. But they have plenty of other superstars to go with them. Batting second, your right fielder, Charlie Hustle, Pete Rose. He of the 1, minus 2E4 in right field. And yeah, that is power, and that is homer 11805, because this is 1969 Pete Rose. And he had 18 home runs for Pete Rose. 16 home runs, excuse me, and a 348 batting average. Arguably his best year. Batting third, Tony Perez, the third baseman. One of his best years. This is his 69 card with 37 home runs and a 294 average. He doesn't field third base very well at all, so he usually gets pulled late in games. So far, that has not been a problem for the Reds. Batting fourth, the MVP of the National League, Johnny Bench. If something were to happen, say, to Bobby Tolan in center field, hey, let Johnny Bench play center field in a pinch. That's what your MVP can do if needed. That's how great this guy is. The MVP, and he's versatile, but of course his -4 arm, he's been behind the dish the entire season. Batting fifth, your first baseman, Lee May. And when you look at all the homers from 7 to 10 there, it looks eerily similar to Roger Maris's 61 homers. Of course, they were on the right side against righties. Similar card in the 61 reissue. All right, here's a newcomer, batting sixth, a free agent, signed away from the Red Sox because the Red Sox had a surplus of outfielders. Billy Canigliaro had a decent year in 70 for the Sox, 398 at-bats, hit 271, plenty of power, decent enough power, could hit both ways, can play defense, very useful player. Batting seventh against the lefty today, Cuellar, is going to be Don Pavlicek. And actually, I got kind of lucky in that I needed to get a backup catcher for Bench, who really would simply not be a backup catcher, but a DH against left-handed pitching. And I found this guy, and I didn't realize it, as Pavlicek plays for the White Sox, but he actually did play for the Cincinnati Reds in the 60s. So there was a connection to the Reds. I'm not really concerned about what he does against righties. Batting 8th, your shortstop. Now this is Dave Concepcion. It's not one of his good years. He's at this point, this is 84. He's kind of near the end of the line a little bit. But what's really useful for the card is his ability to play short and third and be a 3. He's still an ace stealer. And he functions well enough in a platoon. Batting 9th, your second baseman, Tommy Helms, who has been the glue of this infield. He's a 1. He's also an E10 at second. And yeah, he will hold down the fort until they trade for Joe Morgan in a few years. But he had some big hits for this team in the Game 4 win in San Francisco when they went up 3-1. And also he had the clinching walk-off hit in Game 6, the last game the Reds played. Big year for Tommy Helms. The stats are okay, but it's really this glove. Being a 1E10 at second has been really helpful for the Reds. Now let's look at their bench against lefties. Bernie Carbo, of course, he starts against righties and destroys them. And his big fame for the Reds in 1970 was that famous play at home plate in the in Game 1 where it was a pop-up, or it was a ball batted into the plate, and he scored, or he tried to score from third base. Elrod Hendricks was the Oriole catcher. He blocked him. It turns out Carbo actually never touched home plate, and Elrod Hendricks never tagged him out, and the umpire didn't even see the play. There's a great picture of that and a story about that that you can find from the 1970 World Series. So there's a little bit of history with Carbo and the Orioles in the World Series there. This is your starting shortstop against righties, and he's kind of like Concepcion in that he can play all the positions in the infield. He had a big hit in that comeback win, .253 hitting Tom Foley. And the last guy on the bench, also from 1984, this is your rookie Eric Davis card. Just getting his career started. He already has the ability to play the outfield well. He's got plenty of power and knows how to walk as a rookie, which is great. He only hit .224 this particular year, and he'll get himself a World Series ring in 1990. But this is the rookie card of Eric Davis. Now, the pitching. Your starting pitcher for Game 1, Don Gullett, who in 1970 he was just a call-up. He only had like 70 innings. But in 71, Gullett would go on the rotation and be the ace of the staff. So he is the advantage, you could say, of the 1970 team that lost the World Series. They didn't get to experience the full Don Gullett pitching excellence. And then you add Marius Soto. He got himself a World Series ring in the 81 to 84 carryover league, made up of the 81 Cincinnati Reds, who had the best overall record in baseball in the regular season, but did not qualify for the postseason that year because it was a split league, and the Astros and the Dodgers won the first and second half, and the Reds were deprived of going to the playoffs with the best overall record in baseball. That's the first and hopefully only time that's ever happened. Probably Soto's second or third best year of his career right here. Now here's Jim Maloney. This is a great story because it's a 69 Maloney card, and this is the last year he would pitch for the Reds. He does a really good job. He only had 20 innings or something in 1970. I think he got hurt or something like that, or his career was over at that point. But bringing Jim Maloney into the 1970 World Series should help the Reds, along with Don Gullett, and make the Reds a much, much more potent team at the 3 spot. He wants to redeem himself for that incredible 26-8 loss to the Giants in Game 3 of the National League Championship Series. Your number 4 starter, and he had a decent game against Storm Davis. Pitched very well. He had a shutout into the 7th until he gave up a homer to Ken Henderson. John Butcher actually played for the Twins And he had some good stats. He went on the rotation with a 3.44 ERA. So he was picked up off the waiver wire as a number 4 starter. In the bullpen, functionality of this bullpen is key. Granger is your most innings pitched member of the bullpen, considered to be the righty who gets right-handers out, followed by your lefty specialist, meaning just one batter, hopefully. In the National League Championship Series, it was Willie McCovey. In the World Series, it is expected to be Boog Powell. This is Boog Powell's guy. So Juan Agosto and Boog Powell will be seeing plenty of each other. Probably 7 at-bats in 7 games if it goes that long. Yeah, you don't want this guy on the mound, hopefully, against righties. Dave Schmidt, your setup guy, who hadn't been used a lot because John Franco was really getting all the headlines. And Schmidt is a righty who's better at you could say he's more valuable as a righty who gets lefties out. And lastly for the Reds, their all-star closer and MVP of the All-Star game, John Franco, he faltered only once in that Game 5 you saw in the National League Championship Series. Couldn't close it out in San Fran, but Franco has been spotless otherwise, and the glue at the back of the Red bullpen. That is your Cincinnati Reds. And now, the Baltimore Orioles. So the Orioles, a team that won the 1970 World Series. Leading off, Don Buford. They had to wait till the 71 season was available to bring up Buford because they maxed up all the pickups of players from 1969 and 70, which would include, of course, Jim Palmer, Brooks Robinson, Frank Robinson, Paul Blair, Dave McNally, etc., etc. So it took him to the 3rd year of availability before the Orioles brought Buford to the team, and he pays off with a really high on-base percentage. Batting second, and you could call this his best year, perennial Gold Glover Paul Blair. This is the 69 card with the 26 home runs, the 285 batting average. And a great base stealer, great defense, and he moves in the lineup. He bats second against lefties, and they move him down to 7 against righties. Move him around the lineup a little bit. Now we're going to start talking about MVP for a little bit of this discussion. Batting third for the Orioles, your 1983 most valuable player and Hall of Famer, Cal Ripken. And he has been denting this 2-6, you may have noticed, in the American League Championship Series against Oakland. He bats third against lefties. Batting fourth, and he led my league. He led the American League in hitting this year for the Orioles. He was the only representative for the Orioles in the All-Star game, which was very strange. They only had one because they were doing it really. They were winning games, but they didn't really have any statistical excellence other than Frank at the All-Star game, at least. He's your right fielder. He's your 1966 Triple Crown and MVP winner, Frank Robinson. Batting fifth, another MVP. This is your 1970 American League Most Valuable Player, Boog Powell. He is your designated hitter. He's an outstanding defender, but you'll see shortly why he's not playing first base. And again, he destroys lefties and righties. Batting sixth, you know him as a manager and also hitting 40-some home runs for the Atlanta Braves. But steady Dave Johnson. He bats sixth against lefties because of the doubles, and he was batting second, was batting ninth. And then once we put him into the 6th hole in the Oriole lineup, he caught fire, and he's going to stay there and ride that hot hitting in the 6th hole for the Orioles. Batting seventh, your first baseman, which is why Boog Powell's your DH. Eddie Eat Drink NB Murray. Notice the B stealer. Notice the high on-base percentage. Notice that he hits righties better than lefties, which is why he bats 7th against lefties. This is his 84 card. He hit 306. He won a World Series ring with the 1983 Orioles. Batting eighth, here's another most valuable player. Most valuable player 1964 and most valuable player of the 1970 World Series. The Hoover vacuum cleaner for his defensive prowess, Brooks Robinson. 1/18, they should just make it 1/0 and just call it good. But anyway, Brooks Robinson has to bat eighth for this star-laden Oriole team. And batting ninth, believe it or not, another MVP, you ask. What? MVP? Yeah, Rick Dempsey was the MVP of the 1983 World Series. He's in here for his hitting against lefties. He's a 1, of course, as a catcher, but this is interesting. A 0 throwing arm. Normally, Dempsey will bring a -3, -4, -2 throwing arm in the Strat, and so that is something to watch as the series progresses. Now the Oriole bench. And the Oriole bench are the Three Stooges. Not the same Three Stooges from the 83 Orioles, which was Dempsey, Dower, and Todd Cruz, but a new brand of Three Stooges. Bob Horner. Normally he starts against righties at third base for his hitting prowess, and he can't do a thing against lefties. So normally he gets his at-bats against righties, and Brooksy gets a day off. Here's one of the heroes of the clincher, Bill Duran. Big fan of the card and the player. Not one of his best years. He was better in 82 and 83, and would be better in the mid to late 80s as well. He's a 2. Good defense, B stealer, B bunter, B hit and runner, good base runner, switch hitter, and can hit both ways decently enough. Very useful player to find off the waiver wire as a platoon, reserve kind of player. He bats eighth. And of course, if you saw the championship game, Butch Winnegar had 4 hits in the clincher. Similar to Duran in that he's a switch hitter and a B hit and runner. So at the bottom of the lineup, the Orioles like to smack the ball around, hit and run, hit in gaps if they can, move runners from first to third if they can. Nice on base percentage. He plays versus righties, and of course Dempsey plays versus lefties. And now the pitching. Your ace of the Baltimore Orioles, Crazy Horse, Mike Cuellar. Whole lot to like about this card. And they're going to ride this card for 3 starts against a Cincinnati lineup that bashes lefties. So we're wishing Cuellar the best. He won 23 games with a 2.38 ERA. He's your ace. Interestingly, he has the 410 card, which means there were 3 pitchers better than Cuellar as far as ERA in 1969. If I had to guess, I would say it was the relievers. Eddie Watt, Dick Hall, Pete Reichert. Those are my guesses. Your number 2 starter, Jim Palmer. He really doesn't struggle that much with home runs, but for some reason this year he's been giving up the long ball. We like a righty who gets lefties out better. And with Jim Palmer, it's never really a concern which year it is. 70, 69, whatever. He's always going to bring you a 20 win caliber card. So I'm usually never concerned about which year of Jim Palmer I get because of his consistency. Number 3, Dave McNally. He's slightly past his prime here, but that just means he's right in the middle of it. 66 to 71 for McNally for the Orioles. Wins 20 games. Again, it's deceiving to see the 610 card for the same reason we saw Cuellar with the 410 card. So McNally, he got a break in his only start in the championship series when the Orioles rallied for a big 7th inning, as he had given up 6 runs, but he got credited for the win, so he's hoping for better luck. Your number 4 starter is another 20-game winner, and the Orioles have all 20-game winners in the rotation, similar to what actually happened in 1971. Mike Boddicker, who got a World Series ring for the 1983 Orioles, and he has struggled in a couple of postseason starts, so that's something to watch. And now we're going to get to the bullpen. And this is the question mark for the Orioles. Can they withstand their bullpen struggles? Your long man is Ron Taylor. And when the Orioles were getting or had to sign relief pitchers, they realized it was late in the draft and all the good ones were taken. So they found the best guys they could find, one of them being Ron Taylor. Now, they would have preferred to have taken the 1969 Ron Taylor from the Mets, who was a little bit better than the 1970 Ron Taylor. Unfortunately, they had already maxed out all the 1969 slots in the roster. So that was a miscalculation. So Taylor is okay, but not nearly as he was in 69. So he's good enough to get some innings, but I don't want to hang my hat on Ron Taylor, and I don't think the Orioles want to rely on him. And we certainly don't want to see Ron Taylor lose the World Series for the Orioles, if the Orioles can avoid that. The next guy, though, might see his star rising, and it's Jay Howe. And this is actually a pretty good card, but for some reason, earlier in the year, he ended up in Earl Weaver's doghouse and sat idle for a decent chunk of the season. Statistically, there's a whole lot to like there. And Jay Howe had 2 big innings in the clincher. So now he's in the good graces of Earl Weaver, and we may see a nice big dose of Jay Howe in the World Series. Okay, here's the most questionable card of the 2 teams to present today. And that is the lefty in the Baltimore bullpen is Don Eddy. Don Eddy pitched very briefly in baseball for the Chicago White Sox. He had a couple years. The stats, the 2.35 ERA is what the Orioles were lured to because they needed to find a lefty. They had to find a lefty who was eligible, and I guess you could say they were at the bottom of the barrel, and they looked at the 2.35 ERA, but they didn't realize the walks and the homers. So it's going to be sketchy how they're going to implement him in such a critical part in the World Series. Obviously, if you're up or down by a lot of runs, might be the time to get him some work, but you don't want to let this guy cost you a World Series trophy if possible. And the last and final and maybe most important member of the Orioles staff, Dick Hall. And we have said that the Orioles have had a 5-man pitching staff, the 4-man rotation, and then Hall comes in and closes out wins. So Hall, we're expecting him to get 4 appearances in the World Series if the Orioles win 4 games. That's the idea of his use. They don't want to have him, even though he's a relief 3, they don't want to send him out there for too many innings. He's so important when you have those other 3 guys who are of concern. So Dick Hall, we're expecting a big World Series out of him. He had won 4 games already this year, had 9 saves, and his ERA is 2. So he's having a big year at the back end. Both teams have very good closers, John Franco and Dick Hall. And those are the rosters. And that's your preview. All right, we'll see you at the World Series.